Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are here today to talk about Trump's blatant and utter disregarding of the Constitution. He has essentially done several things to violate constitutional law. Honestly. But with that said, let's look at all these issues. Trump proclaims, or Trump has been deporting all these people without due process. Let's look at what the Fifth Amendment says. No person shall be held for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in land and naval forces or in the militia, when in actual time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, no person shall be, and then they give all these, and they all refer to no person. They don't change up and say immigrants. They don't change up and say citizens. They don't change up and say white people. They don't change up and say men. They don't change up and say women. The only identifier is no person. Now, and that brings us to be deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law. Of life, liberty, without due process of law. What he has been doing with kicking these migrants out without trial is a direct violation of the Fifth Amendment's due process clause. Very clear, very to the point. There is no arguing this. And Congress, on due process, tried to pass the Lincoln-Riley Act, taking away due process to migrants, but again, that's a violation of the Fifth Amendment. This is from Cohen Foreman Barone, personal counsel. Why the Laken Riley Act's expansion of INA 236C violates due process under the 5th and 14th Amendments. Laken Riley Act threatens to trample on the rights of due process. Hispanic Federation urges senators to oppose the legislation. Laken Riley Act weakens rights to due process. No, it don't weaken. It fully violates it. Is Donald... Okay, so yeah. The Laken Riley Act, the violation of due process, it's a complete and utter violation of the Fifth Amendment. But yeah, let's look at this. Is Donald Trump ignoring Supreme Court's Abrego Garcia order? And Supreme Court rules Trump officials must facilitate release of man deported to El Salvador. You have a unanimous decision in the Supreme Court whose job is to judge on laws, whether they are violating or meet constitutional muster. And they're saying, yeah, you need to bring him back. He should never have been deported. And Trump is directly violating that. The whole idea of a Supreme Court in the first place was to be a check on Congress and the president, because it's part of that three-legged stool. Because Congress has some abilities to check the Supreme Court and the president. Supreme Court can check some abilities of the president and Congress, and the president has some abilities to check and put in balance Congress and the Supreme Court. He is not supposed to sit there and outright snub what the Supreme Court says. So yeah. Now, also, we've got him violating Congress and its job by trying to decide how things should be spent on laws already passed by Congress, deciding where the money should be spent in the budget. President's not supposed to have anything to do with that. You read the Constitution, Article 1, and it expressly assigns the power of the purse, the ability to decide how money shall be spent, to Congress. These decisions were already made and passed by Congress, and when he got in, he tried to redirect them. No, you don't have that ability. The Constitution does not grant you that ability. And then, let's look at this. 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without, there it is again, due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of laws. Representatives shall be apportioned, talking about representative, how they shall be distributed. Debts. Yeah, okay, so Section 1 is what we want to pay attention to. This first line especially. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction therein are citizens to the United States and the state wherein they reside. Yet, 3 U.S. citizen children, one with cancer, deported to Honduras, lawyers say. Children who are U.S. citizens deported along with foreign-born mothers, attorneys say. That's out and out despicable and nitpicky. These are children. I don't think any of them were in the age of double-digit ages yet. All of them were below 10 years of age. And yet, they say, oh, we're going to deport your mother. Do you want to go or stay? That's a bullshit question to ask a child that fucking young, because they always want to go with their parent. They know what they did was complete and utter bullshit. It's trying to skin the line as thin as they can. They know goddamn well what they did was bullshit. Then we have the idiot we call president. Experts question Trump, and he claims, I don't know about upholding the Constitution. Trump says he doesn't know if he needs to uphold constitutional due process. Dude, you've been president for one term already, having took the oath of office. You got elected to a second term, and you've been in for a few months, and guess what? You took an oath of office. And it says, do you swear to uphold, defend, and protect the Constitution? And yet, he has consistently attacked it. Tried to chop it up, set it on fire, take a huge stinking dump on it. He is not fit to be president. And then one final thing we want to talk about here. ICE. As Trump's immigration crackdown continues, ethics questions are being raised over the use of masked federal agents. Trump administration continues to expand its deportation actions. Startling scenes have emerged in recent weeks of masked federal agents in plain clothes detaining international students on campus or near their homes, raising serious questions about those tactics and their authority to wear face coverings. There is no federal policy dictating when officers can or should cover their faces during arrest, but historically they have almost always worn them only while performing undercover work to protect the integrity of ongoing investigations. Practices have seemingly changed due to the concern agents will be targeted as a byproduct of the Trump administration's policies in a climate where the average person can use technology to expose an officer's personal information. The Trump administration's crackdown on immigration has taken aim at pro-Palestinian student activists and critics of Israel's policy, which, by the way, is an attack on the First Amendment. Immigration advocates, attorneys, and civil litigators are warning against the normalization of federal agents concealing their faces while detaining nonviolent students. It is a standard procedure for ICE officers and other agents of the Department of Homeland Security to wear plain clothes during field operations if they properly identify themselves as a law enforcement officer, John Miller said, who is CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst. But the issue of using masks to deliberately cover the faces of people involved in the operations has become a lightning rod, as footage from the detentions, which may have received less attention had the agents followed typical protocols, have suddenly become high interest. It raises the question, if the legitimate law enforcement agents carrying out the proper arrest under the law, why are they hiding their identities? Exactly. And we have another article like that. Masked officers in tough student arrest raise fears among immigrants and bystanders. So this has become a common scene of masked officers coming in and taking people off the street. You know, if you're part of law enforcement, why are you hiding your face? Or is it because what you know you do is wrong? And you don't want to be called out for it? Yeah. Trump, Vance, Trump's cabinet members, and picks for certain federal agencies like the FBI and such, and ICE are all vile, despicable, disgusting. This is officially the worst timeline. We have become Nazi Germany. We've already made any of the allies we had internationally not really trust us anymore. which in turn, with his stupid tariff war, is going to hurt the citizenry economically in a huge way. He violates the Constitution on a fairly regular basis. Honestly, they are not fit to be in the positions of power they are. I think all of them should be arrested and tried. Because what they have done, there is no excuse. Nothing can make it acceptable. But yeah, I'll go ahead and end this episode here. I just wanted to talk about that. It's insane. This is where we are as a society. Anyway, as always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.